Okay, it looks like it's time to get started. Thank you everyone for joining our live lecture today. My name is Isaac and I'll be the lead instructor for the lecture. And today's topic is career skills. So let's go ahead and dive right in by talking about career planning. Okay, so career programmers are a lot like doctors in the way that they tend to specialize in one specific field. So you got things like oncology, cardiology, radiology, right? Those kind of specifications. And so same thing with programming. You'll tend to specialize in, maybe front-end development or back-end development or maybe data science, right? So it varies. And if you're not sure where, you fit in, you can use a method known as SWOT to help you kind of figure that out. Okay, so SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so let's go over each of those to, get a little bit more in-depth look at what those mean. Okay, so strengths would be if you're someone who's maybe creative, motivating, energetic, dedicated. Weaknesses would be maybe if you're impatient, outspoken, unrealistic. Okay. Opportunities would be the availability or the available jobs on the market, right? So those are the ones we just talked about: front-end engineer, back-end engineer, data science. The list goes on. And then threats to your potential career goals would be things like criminal history, unemployment, finances. Okay, and I think each of those really speak for themselves. Now, next let's talk about soft skills. Okay, so the vast majority of people who become programmers have several other non-technical skills. Usually these have been acquired through previous employment and education and are transferable to the programming job. Okay, so these are things like interpersonal skills, how you act with others; organizational skills, how you approach tasks; leadership skills, how you motivate and direct others; and communication skills, how you communicate with others. Okay, and so you got to think about when you're applying for these jobs, pretty much all the other candidates that are applying for that position are also technical. Okay, so what's going to set you apart from them is if you have some soft skills that add value to yourself on the non-technical side as well. Next, let's talk about your tech resume. Okay, so there's 3 basic C's when you're building out your resume. Okay, it needs to be clean. That means easy to read font, proofread, and not cluttered. It needs to be concise. Okay, 1 page, and to the point. It needs to be convincing. Showcase your skills and experience, but don't try to oversell it and use big words you don't, normally use in your everyday vocabulary. Okay, and keep in mind that although the resume review process is kind of different between different employers, the statistics tell us you have around 7 to 10 seconds of viewing time by a hiring manager before they move on to the next resume. So knowing that, the focus of the more important information should be located at the top half of your resume. Okay, and these are the 3 things we recommend. Okay, so you should have your GitHub and your LinkedIn profiles. You should have your tech skills listed, and you should also have your project examples. So let's start by taking a example of a bad resume. Okay, so you can see right off the bat, we got this big, ugly blue graphic, right? No graphics, no pictures. We just want it to be all text-based. Next, although they included a GitHub link, they did not include their LinkedIn profile, right? And so the problem with that is a non-technical hiring manager wouldn't be able to evaluate a candidate by looking at their GitHub. So that's where LinkedIn comes in handy. Next, they listed they list their tech skills. And, that goes along with, what we talked about. This is the 3 things you put at the top half, so that works out. But then you'll notice they put education next before projects. And the reason this is bad is because projects actually have more weight than education as far as adding value. And the reason is, with education, oftentimes a diploma or maybe a degree from somewhere doesn't really show them what you've done. Whereas a project with a link, that's hosted live online, that's a little more, proof for them. So definitely put your project before your education because these definitely will stand out much more. Okay, and then last we'll see here, it's 2 pages long, just way too much. So knowing that, let's go ahead and now take a look at a good example of a resume. Okay, so a good example, as we can see here, we have a GitHub and a LinkedIn profile at the top. Okay, so that checks out. Then we list our tech skills. Okay, these look good. And then we put our projects. Okay, and then you see if that about hits the halfway mark. Okay, and then you wrap it up by putting, you know, other valuable information such as your education, your volunteer experience, things like that. But as you see, we wrap it up and don't go past this one page, right? So we could review this in a very short amount of time and really get a good idea of what this candidate has to offer. Okay, next let's talk about 10 things to never include on your tech resume. So first one is misspelled words or bad grammar, and that's kind of a given. Number two is no personal information like social security number. And you gotta, you know, just remember that your resume is oftentimes going to be, you know, emailed among different departments, and sometimes it's going to be printed out. And the last thing you want is someone to get a hold of your number and abuse it. So, you know, don't put any sensitive information like that on your resume. Number three, don't include things like jokes, even if they're tech related. Make sure, you know, you just keep professional. Number four, don't include irrelevant work or job experience. Okay, and some people will tell you that some experience is better than no experience, but you know, even when you're first starting out, if you don't have anything tech related, it's better just not put anything than to put maybe you know did babysitting at your aunt and uncle's, right, or something like that, where it's just not relevant. Number five, never include meaningless words you don't normally use in your everyday vocabulary. Okay, and this one is actually really synonymous among all recruiters, right? They go through lots of different applications every day. And when someone starts speaking big words that aren't used in everyday vocabulary, it sticks out, and it's not a good thing. You know, most of the time it tells them you're trying to compensate for something. Maybe you're not that good of a coder, right? So to avoid that, just keep to your regular lingo. Number six, never include reasons for leaving previous positions. Okay, so although this is a common question to ask, maybe in the interview or in their application, don't just put it on there, because there's much more valuable information you can put in that place. Number seven, don't include hobbies. Again, this doesn't add value to us as a candidate, so we want to put something else there that does add value. Number eight, don't include salary requirements. Okay, so although they know that you're there for the paycheck, at the end of the day, they want to believe that you're there to help their company grow as well. So if you're putting salary requirements on the resume right off the bat, it gives them the wrong impression. So just leave those off, and eventually, during the interview or the point of hire, they'll go ahead and they will ask your requirements in that regard. Number nine, never include references. Okay, again, this is just consider a waste of resume space. There's lots of other stuff that adds more value to us than references. And finally, number 10, don't include unprofessional contact information. Okay, so this goes for emails, voicemails, all the above. All right, so now we've got a resume set up and we're ready to go, start applying for jobs. Now let's talk about networking. Okay, so there's two common forms of networking. You've got online networking and in-person networking. And first thing we're going to talk about is in-person networking. And it just so happens that in-person networking is the #1 way to get a job in the tech industry. While online networking is great, in-person networking is even more effective because of the hidden market. And the hidden market is 80% of job openings are not posted online in the tech industry. Okay, and so how most of the hiring is done is normally they'll ask for internal references from their developers or other departments. And so getting to know developers from other companies and other professionals gives you that leg in the back door to be referred for these positions. Okay, so to get to know these professionals in your area, you can go to meetups. Meetups are typically workshops that maybe teach you a little bit of code, and then afterwards you get to mingle and have snacks and things of that nature. So A couple websites we recommend for looking at meetups in your area are meetup.com and eventbrite.com. All right, so now let's talk about finding the right fit. So before you apply for a job, it's always best to do a little bit of research about that organization. Okay, and it's important for a couple reasons. So during the interview, it's good to know more about the company than just their name, right? It shows that you actually care about what they do and not just the paycheck. And second, everyone's culture is different. So although these days a lot of tech offices and stuff are structured fairly laid back, maybe that's not a work environment you prefer. Maybe you prefer something you interact with customers, do sales, something to that nature, right? So if that's the case, then you'll know not to apply for that job, and that will have saved you some time as well as the employer. Okay, so now let's talk about the online job search. We've already emphasized that applying in person or networking in person is the most effective way to get your leg in the door. However, online job searches are very effective as well. Okay, so although there's tons of ways that employers post jobs, here's a few of the job boards we have found more successful for our students. Okay, so Indeed.com, you've probably heard of this one. Probably one of the biggest in the US, if not the world. And then we got Monster.com and Dice.com. And with all of these, you can set up notifications, let you know when there's new jobs, hot leads out, so you can apply first and all that great stuff. And you'll notice I also put Craigslist down here. And although Craigslist isn't technically a job board, it is a classifieds, and oftentimes you'll find small projects in there just to maybe build up your portfolio or get some cash flowing in. Either way, you'll tend to find a good amount of offerings there, depending on your area. All right, so let's go ahead and let's reiterate your contact information. Okay, so although it seems common knowledge, adjusting your email and voicemail during a job search period can make a big difference on how potential employers view you. Okay, so example of a bad email would be johnnytheladiesman89@gmail.com. Okay, it's really long. It's kind of immature, somewhat inappropriate, right? So we wouldn't want anything like that. We want something more simple, right? john.smith@gmail.com, right? Somewhere along those lines. And then for the voicemail, it just means to be short and to the point. Again, not long-winded, nothing like that. Just very straightforward. That's what employers are looking for. They don't want play games. Okay, so now let's talk about LinkedIn. And if you don't already know, LinkedIn is the world's largest networking platform for business professionals. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of a good LinkedIn profile. If you don't already have a LinkedIn profile, you will need to get one. Okay, so let's just kind of go down the list here. First thing we'll start with is the gentleman's photo. Okay, we'll notice that the photo, they're smiling, they have a recent photo, and that's going to be a good start to the load. Okay, and then we got headline, which just tells people about what you're doing now, the cool things you want to do in the future. Summary down here is a little about me section, a couple paragraphs, just kind of sums up you as a professional so far in life. Your experience is like your online resume, where you can list businesses you worked for and the periods you worked for those establishments, and links to their website and all that kind of stuff. Next, we have organizations. Maybe you're involved with an organization at work or outside work, right? Maybe Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts of America, right? Things of that nature. So yeah, maybe you would put that down for organizations. Education would be maybe if you have a degree from a university, somewhere like that, and you would put that down, add value to yourself. Volunteer experience. This is pretty self-explanatory. If you weren't paid for a job and you volunteered for voting booths or whatever else, make sure you put that. Definitely adds value. Next, skills and expertise. This is one of my favorite sections because you can go in there and as developers, we tend to have a lot of different skills, right? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the list goes on. And so it's nice to be able to list them all out. And then once you've listed them, you can ask for endorsements. Endorsements are where connections come in. Connections are like LinkedIn friends, and they simply endorse you for that skill. And the more endorsements you have for a set skill, the more weight it adds and confirmation it adds that you can actually perform that skill. So next we have honors and awards. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you've won or achieved anything, in an award like fashion, go ahead and list that. Courses, similar to education. Maybe you didn't necessarily go to school for a degree. Maybe just a certification or specialization in something. So you list that there in your courses. Projects, software developers, of course, we list our projects here, hopefully those projects are going to be, hosted online. So, anyone in the world could visit them. And then you'd have project descriptions and collaborators and all that great stuff here. And then finally, we have recommendations. Okay, and recommendations are pretty straightforward. You just ask your connections for verbal endorsements where they come in here and tell the business world their experience in working with you and why that would be good for other future businesses to work with you, and that kind of thing. So this is again example of a good LinkedIn profile. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look at an example of a good GitHub profile. Okay. Okay, so right off the bat, we have a smiling picture. As you'll notice, there's not as much to a GitHub profile as there is to LinkedIn, right? This isn't for employers, it's for code. However, how it's set up can matter, okay? So you notice we have a photo, it has their name, right? It doesn't have, some username, something like that, right? It has their real name, has, a good amount of repositories that, a technical manager could go through and they could, inspect the, the inside of these and, view their code and all that kind of stuff. Okay. And then, we got followers here. Okay. And followers are always good. Shows influence and all that kind of stuff. All right, moving on. Let's talk about online branding. Okay, so in the tech-driven era, employers often look to online sources that don't have anything to do with you as a professional, but rather who you are as a person in general. Example of good branding online would be if they went to your Twitter profile and they saw you have a high number of profile followers. That's not a bad thing. It shows you're influential, and oftentimes people who are influential often have leadership characteristics. However, example, bad branding would be maybe pictures of you drinking at last night's party, every other, picture, every other night or post, right? Just something that would give them the wrong impression of what you would be like as an actual employee. Okay, so if you need to, go and clean up your social profiles, especially when you're in that job search period, because you will give yourself, a higher chance of getting hired and less chance of them discovering something that you don't want them to see. All right, so now let's move on to the topic of the elevator pitch. So the elevator pitch is a technique that can be used to answer the prompt, "Tell me about yourself." And a lot of us have heard this prompt at a interview. Normally it's like the first question that's asked, it's like an icebreaker, right? And most people who aren't prepared just kind of spout off the things that come to the top of their head, like, my name is this, I grew up here, I like to do this on my free time, and, that kind of stuff. So the problem is, when we answer the prompt like that, we aren't adding value to ourselves, okay? And we don't even look prepared. So to avoid this impression, what we can do is we can prepare what's called an elevator pitch. And so an elevator pitch is structured like this. It's 30 to 60 seconds in length. It lists what you do well, those are your skills. What you want to do, those are your goals, and why you want to do it, your intent, okay? And by answering those three things, and practicing this over and over again in the mirror and with your friends and family, you're going to come off very confident when they ask you this question. And also you're going to add value to yourself as a candidate. And most other candidates are not going to prepare like this. And so you're going to have the edge in that regard. All right, now let's move on to the topic of the tech interview. Okay, so technical interviews come in all shapes and sizes, so there's no one way to prepare. Instead, it's just best to use, those well-known methods out there that you may encounter during the interview that have been encountered by, various other developers in the past. Okay, so here's a few sites we recommend for you to practice. Coderbyte.com is a great one to start with, and this one offers you daily code challenges, and they range from easy to medium to hard, and give you a little level, and you can watch yourself level up and all that great stuff. So Coderbyte's definitely a great place to start. Then you got codebytes.com, and this really teaches you to think on your feet when you have to build some code against another developer in a timed environment. Again, a lot of us during the interview, we oftentimes go blank because we're working under pressure, things of that nature. So you need to practice. You can always use Codebytes. And then interviewcake.com is really renowned for teaching people how to think through interview questions, even if they've never heard the question before. Okay, and also helps you get credit for questions, maybe even partial credit if you can't get the exact answer because of the way you approach it. Okay, so check out all through those great sources. And of course, there's several others online we encourage you to explore as you see fit. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up with the topic of follow-up. Okay, so as in most industries, it's good to follow up with the hiring managers on your submitted applications as well as your previous interviews. Keep in mind that the hiring manager is often cycling through tons of applications, so it helps to have someone reach out to them to make yourself more memorable. And this is absolutely true. We've had several students in the past, that, have told us that, they went to an interview and they didn't get the job, and then they reach out to the hiring manager just to shoot them a thank you note or whatever for the interview, and then they get hired a week later, right? So you just never know what that small little follow-up will do for you. So definitely, give yourself the best chance and always make sure you do that. All right, so let's go and open up the floor, and let's see if anyone has any questions. Floor is open. If you have questions, feel free to ask them now. Okay, I don't hear anyone, so I'm assuming we're all good today. Well, thanks for stopping by, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and happy job hunting out there.